All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Haribol, thank you. All glories to the Prabhupada Disciples Association, which has been established for the specific purpose of protecting the legacy of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, our Guru. And this is a very important legacy because Prabhupada is such an auspicious person. Auspicious means who possesses all good qualities. And the living entity in the material world possesses no good qualities, especially in the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is a time of quarrel and hypocrisy. This is the characteristics of the conditioned souls in this age. There are 8,400,000 different species of life in the material universe. That's a lot. And these species are the resting place for the spirit soul. The spirit soul enters into the material world and, due to the influence of karma, transmigrates from one species to the next. So in one birth, one could be born as a dog or a cat. One could be born as a snake or a rat. And if one is fortunate enough, they're born as a human being. Of all the different species of life, Prabhupada explains that the human form is the most blessed, because in the human form of life, we can understand by the use of intelligence what its purpose is. The dog doesn't know its purpose. It doesn't have the intelligence to grasp why he or she is born. The cat doesn't know why he or she is born, but the human being does. And this is the great opportunity for the human being to get out of the cycle of birth and death. This particular situation affects all species. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-gītā, for one who is born, death is for certain. And for one who has died, birth is certain. So this cycle that's the species are in is called the cycle of birth and death. Interestingly enough, this week, we had one of the members of our ashram die on Tuesday. And he was with us for a short period of time while he was taking cancer treatments. His name was Bhakta Andrew. And he went in for an operation about 3 weeks ago, and then subsequently had to go through further operations and to mitigate some of the problems. And then I got notice on Tuesday that he passed away. So even here at the ashram, we're experiencing the birth and death cycle. People are being born every day, and people are dying every day. This is the nature of material life. No matter what species you're in, the different species also have different durations of life. So it was of great fortune. I was listening to Prabhupada just before the class. He was saying that if a person even begins Krishna consciousness and has a little bit of advancement, when Andrew was here, I would be bringing him information on the purpose of human life. Now, was he that interested? Very neophyte, was involved in Christian belief. But nonetheless, he could hear the chanting of Hare Krishna every day. He could witness me in the other room chanting my rounds every day. He could get a chance to hear Prabhupada chanting japa every day. And in this way, by taking the prasadam that we offered every day, he got the mercy of Krishna. This is the job of a devotee. First of all, to give information how to get the mercy of Krishna, and then to share it with others. Of course, first one has to go through some training. This is not an automatic thing, just like the doctor. The doctor cannot automatically go to the hospital after getting out of college and begin to do a major operation. Oh, I'm a doctor now, I can do major operation. No, he must be qualified. So Prabhupada, when he came from the west, or from the east to the west here, he brought a certain set of rules to help elevate the human being up from the animal platform to the Brahminical platform, to the platform of a first-class human being. And then you become qualified to understand Krishna consciousness. First, one has to be trained. This is the idea of our classes. Through these classes, we're sharing this information from the Bhagavad-gītā, spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, on the science of the purpose of human life. This is a very serious effort that we're making to help others in their journey in this human form of life. This is the purpose of the Prabhupada Disciples Association, to share knowledge to others on why you were born. People don't know why they're here every day. But one thing's for sure, sooner or later, they'll find out that death has come. And just before we start the class with our godbrother, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, the most, I wanted to refer to the Bhagavatam. What is the most, that's taught in the Bhagavatam, what is the most amazing thing? Your mother has died. Your father has died. Your sister has died. Your dog has died. Your friends have died. But you think, I won't die. This is illusion. And the only way to get out of illusion is through the mercy of the pure devotee of Krishna. This is a great opportunity for all of us, not only through his mercy, but through the mercy of his movement. In other words, Prabhupada proliferated Krishna consciousness when he was here with us personally, and he instructed all of his disciples to share this knowledge to other people for their benefit as well as their own. For their benefit, meaning all of the people we meet, and for our own benefit, through hearing and chanting and remembering the process of Krishna consciousness. It's a very wonderful science. It's a great opportunity. And with the Prabhupada Disciples Association, we're trying to present this process without any motive except to help other people awaken their dormant Krishna consciousness. Yes, awaken it and practice it and become advanced in spiritual life so you understand that we are eternal servants of Krishna. This is the essence of the Bhagavad-gītā as well, the Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. What does As It Is mean? It means Prabhupada, through his purports, is giving us a direct understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that he has come to take us back home, back to the spiritual world after we finish this life of birth and death. So we'll move forward. Vinkat, thank you everyone for joining us, by the way. We sincerely appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy the class and the benefits that come from hearing and chanting in association with the disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Please play the Jaya Radha Madhava bhajan for us.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jayam Swasaram Shukridrajagacharya Siddhara Sadasyaman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridhar ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navadvip Dham ki Jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai. Jamuna Mai ki Jai. Tulasi Devi ki Jai. Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunatan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Shcha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Ghorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everybody to this reading and discussion on Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. All the synonyms, translations, and purports in these readings are from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. We will be reading from chapter 7, text 11. We are reading from the original non-adulterated Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, the 1972 Macmillan edition, page 376, text 11 and 12. Balam balavatam chaham Kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshaba. Balam, strength, balavatam, of the strong, cha, and, aham, I, am, kama, passion, raga, attachment, vivarjitam, devoid of, dharma aviruddha, not against the religious principles, bhuteshu, in all beings, kama, sex life. Asmi, I am. Bharatarshaba, O Lord of the Bharatas. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. Text number 12. Yecheva satvika bhava rajasastamashaschaye mattayeviti tan viddi natvaham tishute mayi. Yea, all those, cha, and, eva, certainly, sattvikaha, in goodness, bhava, states of being, rajasa, mode of passion, tamasa, mode of ignorance, cha, also, yea, although, mattaha, from me, eva, certainly, iti, thus, tan, those, vidhi, try to know, na, not, to, but, aham, I, teshu, in those, te, they, mayi, unto me. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. All states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of this material nature. Purport. All material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes of nature are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Similarly, all the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna. But Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirguna, which means that these gunas or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. This is one of the special characteristics of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who has opened my eyes, our eyes, from the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvichesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad-vandanam khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadati Visheshataha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Shri Rup Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before we begin, I just want to make a little note for everybody. There is a devotee in this class, Dharma Bhavana from Dallas, Texas, who has just published a very nice book of Srila Prabhupada's preaching and activities in Dallas, Texas, USA. So everybody at some point try to contact him to obtain a copy of this wonderful book. He's done a lot of research and a lot of devotional efforts to compile this book. Again, this is Dharma Bhavana. We will eventually provide his contact information and his email address, and everybody can try to contact him. Incidentally, him and his wife are very active in the Dallas area with regular preaching programs where they engage dozens of people in chanting, prasadam, and all kinds of wonderful devotional activities. With regards to this verse, it is quite significant how Srila Prabhupada interprets this point about balam balavatam chaham. There was one initiation at one point. I was told this by two separate devotees and one Prabhupada servant, where one devotee answered the question at the initiation ceremony because Prabhupada would ask the devotees who had been initiated, what are the four regulative principles? So one lady devotee said, no sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no mental speculation, no intoxication, no sex. Prabhupada said, no illicit sex. Because we see in the Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna is describing here, Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharata rishabha. Says, I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. It is not that sex is forbidden, but it should be engaged for the procreation of children, not simply as a sense gratificatory pursuit. Now, in current human society, with its wokeness, propaganda, and all kinds of permissive, illicit behaviors, some people will protest. Why can't you just engage in any kind of sexual activity, regardless of whether there's any restriction? After all, this is Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the age of sense gratification, the age of permissiveness. Prabhupada one time described how in Satya Yuga, the golden age, where the duration of life was 100,000 years, and people would engage in very successful meditation, that everybody was Paramamsa. Everybody was liberated soul. But in Kali Yuga, it is very different. We have seen in the Srimad Bhagavatam, how in the age of Kali Yuga, prayena alpayusha, that most people have a short duration of life. If someone lives for 100 years, is considered to be something very special, very extraordinary. So we do not have the conditions that we had in the Satya Yuga. It is a very different situation. In the next age, the Treta Yuga, people used to live for 10,000 years and engage in very elaborate fire sacrificial ceremonies. But in this age, Prabhupada has explained that there are no qualified Brahmins to do these ceremonies, and it is very expensive to gather all of the necessary ingredients. Now, in the Dwapara Yuga, which is prior to Kali Yuga, where people used to live for 1,000 years, the Yuga Dharma, or the religious practice, was elaborate, very elaborate deity worship. For those of you who may have been in South India, also in North India, but primarily in South India, there are still many big temples from Dwapara Yuga, like Tirupati, Srirangam, and so many big temples and big deities where there was very elaborate deity worship. But in Kali Yuga, things have been simplified. We have often discussed that verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that in the age of Kali, Kaler dosha nidhi rajan, asti eko mahan gunaha, that in this age there's many faults, many difficulties. Asti eko, but there's one great quality. Well, what is that? Kirtanadeva Krishna sya mukta sangha parambrajet. Simply by chanting the name of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, one can immediately be liberated from all the problems of Kali Yuga. Of course, the Acharyas have recommended and prescribed different methods to stay liberated. There is one lecture I saw recently where Srila Prabhupada explains that the person who started these 4 regulative principles in our Sampradaya was Srila Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada says, I have adjusted these principles according to the time, place, and circumstances. It is not very difficult. But first thing that one has to learn is to hear properly. So as part of this process, as we have done before, we're going to read from a lecture of Srila Prabhupada on the same verse. Srila Prabhupada gave many, many lectures on various verses in the Bhagavad-gītā, and these were published by the Bhaktivedanta Archives. This is called the Collected Lectures on Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. This particular lecture deals with the same verse. This was given in New York on October 7th, 1966. Prabhupada was speaking on Bhagavad-gītā chapter 7, text from 11 to 16. Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharataroshabha. Srila Prabhupada. Now, this particular verse we were discussing last day, that lust or sex desire on the principles of religiosity is Krishna. This point we have discussed very elaborately. You may remember that so far necessities of this body are concerned, that is allowed, but in a regulated form. The necessities of this body are 4. We must eat something, we must have rest, sleep for some time, we must defend ourselves from the attack of enemies, and we must have the facility for sex life also. These things are necessary for keeping up this body. But one who is going to liberate himself from this material entanglement, he cannot use this excessively. There must be regulated. Just like a diseased person is put under regulation, he is also given to eat something. Although eating is not very good for a diseased person, still he's allowed to eat something. Some barley water, some fruit juice, some light food, so that starvation is also not good. So he's allowed. But he cannot be allowed foodstuff according to the patient's desire. The foodstuff is allowed to him according to the direction of the physician. So if we want to be conversant, well equipped with Krishna consciousness, then we must have to regulate our life. That regulation is given in various scriptures. And here also, Lord Krishna says, he's describing himself, how you can remember him in every circumstances of your life. So similarly, sex life is also a necessity for our life. Therefore, Krishna says, yes, I am also in sex life, provided as it is. I mean to say, carried according to the scriptural injunction. What is that scriptural injunction? That one must get himself married. Otherwise, sex life is not allowed. It is considered sinful. Married sex life is allowed. Krishna says that dharma aviruddhaha. Aviruddhaha means not against the religious principles. The religious principle is putrarte kriyate bharya uttarapinda prayojanam. According to Vedic literature, one should marry just to have a child, putra. Putra means son. The derivative meaning of putra is punnamo narakad yasmatrayate iti putraha. For our sinful reaction, we have to visit some hell, which is known as pun. So it is prescribed in the Hindu scripture that the child, when the father dies, the boy has to perform several ceremonies, which is called Shraddha ceremony. So that if the father had, for his sinful acts, is in trouble in his next life, this ceremony will protect him. These are some of the thoughts, and they are true. Suputra means punnamno narakad yasmat trayate iti putraha. One who delivers the father from the hell, which is known as pun, is called putra. So therefore, how can I have putra without wife? If one wants a son without wife, that is not possible. Therefore, the scriptural injunction is that according to the Vedic rules, you get yourself married and have good sons to protect your family and to protect yourself. This is called religious sex life. So this religious sex life, Krishna recommends. And he says that sex life in religiosity is I am present there. I am present there. And next he says, Yecheva satvika bhava, rajasas tamasas chaye, mattayaviti tan viddi, natvaham tishute mayi. I think we have discussed all this. Na tribir gunamayer bhaver, ibihi sarvamidam jagat. We are discussing about the three modes of material nature. Now the Lord says that the whole world is captivated by the three modes of material nature, and mohitam, and bewildered by the actions and reaction of these three modes of material nature. One has forgotten his eternal relationship with God or Krishna. We've got eternal relationship with God because we are sons of God. How the relation can be broken? Suppose you have got son. Now he's not obedient to you. That is all right. He has gone out of home. He does not like you, but the relation cannot be broken. When he will be asked, what is your father's name? He has to name that I am son of such and such gentleman. That relation cannot be broken. Similarly, we're all sons of God, Krishna. So our relationship is eternal, but we have forgotten. Just you understand. God is all powerful, all famous. He possesses all wealth. He possesses all beauty. He possesses all knowledge, and he possesses all renunciation. So we are sons of such a great personality. We have forgotten. Just as a rich man's son forgets his father and becomes mad and lying on the street and begging, oh, that is due to his forgetfulness. If somebody gives him information that why you are suffering in this way, you have got your father's riches, you go home and enjoy your father's property. Your father is very much anxious to have you. So why you are rotting in this condition? And if he comes to his senses, that is, oh, I've suffered so much, now I shall go back to my father and enjoy life. So we will read some of this again next week. So these are very important instructions from Srila Prabhupada explaining the principle. Just like if we read, for example, in Bhagavad-gītā, Prabhupada quoted that verse in chapter 2, text 13, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dirastatra namuhyati. Srila Prabhupada, I just saw today, somebody posted a very nice explanation, which is a very brief explanation from Srila Prabhupada, how this change of body takes place. And Prabhupada gave the example that the gross body will die, but the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego will carry on to the next body. Prabhupada gives the example that you cannot directly see. Just like sometimes when there is smell, there's a road smell. The road smell is carried by the air. The air carries the smell, but you cannot see how it is being done, but you can perceive it. Similarly, the change of body at the time of death is being carried on by the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego, by the thoughts at the time of death. So at this point, we will open up the discussion, trying to get some time for comments and questions and things of that nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, for your explanation and your readings from Prabhupada's lecture. I wanted to refer back to the verse for a minute, text 12, and just read the translation. All states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am, in one sense, everything, but I am independent. I'm not under the modes of this material nature. So here Krishna is making a distinction between the conditioned soul and himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what it means by as it is, that Krishna is unique in his position as the Supreme Father. Now, Vinod, I'd like you to go to chapter 14, text 19, chapter 4, 3 modes of material nature. This further complements this last verse, where Krishna further is explaining his position. Translation. When you see that there's nothing beyond these 3 modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. So exactly connected to the verse in chapter 7. Now, it's interesting to note that when Prabhupada speaks, he speaks with true eloquence. In other words, he can concisely explain the truth, the purpose of human life within one purport. We have so many books, thousands and thousands of pages of information that the students of Bhakti Yoga can study and become acquainted with, because knowledge of Krishna is unlimited. It's not like the newspaper, which is useless. The newspaper, mundane knowledge is garbage. That's what you take. That's what you do with the newspaper when you finish reading it. You take it and you throw it in the garbage. There's no value in it. It's dead material. It's something about describing the passage of time in this world with other living entities, telling everyone how difficult life is. There's a war, there's a pandemic, there's a death. All this information, it comes and goes like the passing of the wind, comes before us and then goes. So in this purport on text 19, in chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita, this purport by Srila Prabhupada really concisely explains to us all the particular predicament that we're in. Yes, we're in a difficult situation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected by the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master. In this case, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. A living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the modes of material nature. That's like a coma. You're in a state of bewilderment because of this, or an unconscious state because of this covering of the influence of the modes of nature. Prabhupada further describes he is helpless, being in the grips of these modes. But when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. That position is, just briefly, Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nityadasa. We are the eternal servants of Krishna, not of this material body. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he's situated in a particular type of body conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter, where we're reading right now, that one who is surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of the material nature. Therefore, one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of the material nature gradually ceases. So here we see how beautiful these purports by Srila Prabhupada are, how they, in very concise words, are giving people, all of us, insight in how to perform our daily duties in such a way that we can reawaken that dormant Krishna consciousness, which will enable us at the time of death to go back home, back to Godhead. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, could you comment?
And at this point, it's very important for devotees to really study the books that Prabhupada has given. In other words, Srila Prabhupada has given a wealth of information, a transcendental wealth of information that anybody can consult, can read on any issue that is given. One can go to Srila Prabhupada and look at his purport, conversations, letters, and all these discussions. And if something seems to either to be ambiguous or unclear or difficult to understand due to our conditioning, then one can try reading these various purports, just like we're doing right now. We've gone from this particular purport to that verse that Vishwakarma Prabhu, and we see so many clear, lucid explanations from His Divine Grace on any given topic. So this is a very important point, that devotees can do that. Mataji, you've had your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. The question starts out with, when a devotee is younger, it is very difficult to control the sex desire, especially when they're very young. And that's, the hardest regulative principle there is for them. What would you say is the best way to help? What advice can you give them to help them maintain their celibacy when they're young?
Let me just tell you a little story. Prabhupada one time told one devotee in 1968, the difference between you and me, telling a devotee, is that if I was in a room with 12 naked, attractive women, I would not be agitated in the least, but you would be very agitated. So this is the difference between a Paramamsa liberated soul and a conditioned soul. Now, Prabhupada used to often say, chant Hare Krishna, that will solve your problem. That is the first recommendation that Prabhupada would give. Another thing too, following these principles is all done in conjunction with engaging the mind in Krishna's service. The reason that the mind runs to these various sensual activities or attractions, because the mind is not engaged in the service of Krishna. And that is why the mind gets agitated. The modes of nature can only function when the conditioned soul lets Maya in. In other words, if we are engaged 24 hours a day in various Krishna conscious activities, this is how the mind is controlled. In the Bhagavad-gītā, everybody knows the quote about higher taste, raso varjam raso pyastya, param drishva nivartate. That if one gets a higher taste by spiritual activity, by chanting, by hearing, by Bhagavatam reading, Bhagavad-gītā reading, doing some service, Tulsi worship, so many different activities. Because when we analyze what Srila Prabhupada did, he wrote his books and he practically shown everybody by his own personal example how people can be engaged in Krishna's service by chanting, by hearing. These are the most important activities, but just like everybody has to eat. Everybody has to eat to maintain the body. So Prabhupada has shown us how to cook wonderful food, offer the foodstuff to Krishna, and then take the prasadam. That is one way of purifying. Let me give an example one time. We came back from a long Samkirtan, a couple of months on the road, and Srila Prabhupada, this was in late December of 1973. So Srila Prabhupada asked, so what time do you get up in the morning? We told Prabhupada, well, we get up at 3:30 and we take a cold bath. The Prabhupada says, oh, I used to do that at Radha Damodar. And Prabhupada said, well, do you know if you take a cold bath at that time, that it will prolong your life? I said, no. Prabhupada says, in the Ayurveda, it says that if you take a bath during the Brahma Muhurta, a cold bath, it will prolong your life. I said, oh. Then he says, what do you eat every day? It says, well, we're in a band. We have a little Coleman stove. We cook some khichdi with rice and dal, and we put a little cauliflower or potato or something. Prabhupada says, oh. Prabhupada says, do you know that this is the food of sadhus? If you eat this kind of food every day offered to Krishna, you'll never get sick. He says, in India, many sadhus, they cook like that. So Prabhupada has given so many practical instructions. As far as how to keep the senses engaged, we have to use our intelligence because, especially in North America, we no longer have the practical functioning society. Now we have a new cult, this Living Guru cult, or LJEP, Living Guru Experimental Project. That is what ISKCON has become. So if people can live in their houses and engage nicely, you have deity worship, you can cook, you have the Tulsi, read the Bhagavatam. And if you have snow outside, you can shovel some snow, keep active with that, chanting Hare Krishna. But there's a lot of activities that can be done. It's simply to train the mind to be molded to think of Krishna. For example, if we read in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, what is the basic principle of that book? It says, Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna nivesayat. Some way or other, fix the mind upon Krishna. This is the principle. Sarvibidi nishedasyo etayore vakinkaraha. That all the rules and regulations and the restrictions are simply servant of that basic fundamental principle. Some way or other, fix the mind upon Krishna. You know, there's a lecture what Prabhupada gave in the beginning that he used to cook 2 or 3 times a day in New York. He says people were not so interested in chanting Hare Krishna, but they loved the prasadam. So he would engage people by giving them prasadam, by teaching his early disciples how to cook and engaging people like that. There's so many wonderful activities. And if somebody does that, then gradually, the effect will diminish. The effect of Maya will diminish. It is up to us How much of an intense desire do we have? There's somebody else there, Bala Ganesh,
We had Balaganesh Prabhu.
SDK, that has a question. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Can you hear me,
Yeah.
Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Try to speak clearly and slowly. Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhu. So I have a doubt. So in this section, Krishna is saying about his energies, that he's all pervasive. Okay, his essence of everything. Means all great things he will compare. I am the strength of the strong. I am the heat in the fire. I am the life at all. This means whatever is best, that Krishna is saying that I am the best. But whereas
You're losing the sound here. We cannot hear you properly. Speak slowly, clearly, and loudly.
Okay, Prabhu. So is it clear now, Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
I can hear you, but slow down, slowly and clearly.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah. So here I'm not able to understand one thing so here Krishna compares himself that dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava, sex life not contrary to the religious principles, which is practiced in grihastha ashrama. But whereas sannyasa ashrama is the leader of, sannyasa is the leader of all other varnas. Means he is the head and master of all other social statuses and orders. So then why Krishna, he knows that like renounced order of life is considered head and he's the leader. Then he's comparing all the things, best things in whatever comparisons you made earlier. But why in this example, he's comparing to something inferior? Because sannyasasrama is the head, but he is now comparing it with the lower status of life called grihasthasrama. So what exactly means Krishna is saying about the terms of sex life here, Prabhu?
Okay, Vishwakarma Prabhu, can you take the answer to this question? I could not hear much of
I
what he
can,
says. I don't know
I
if
can
it's
just
his audio or my audio.
I can just repeat the
Okay.
question if you
Yes, go
I
ahead.
can give an answer. I can give an answer.
Okay.
Prabhu, first of all, your understanding of ashram is incorrect. The grihastha ashram or the brahmachari ashram is not less than the sannyas ashram. That is a mistake. Really, the process of Krishna consciousness is not based on ashram. It's based on understanding. In other words, if a grihastha, for example, Prabhupada explained to us, if he is following the process of Krishna consciousness according to the rules and regulations, then he is the real sannyasi. Because sannyas means to have given up material desire for the service of Krishna. That sannyas means, real renunciation means that you are in control of your senses. You have a higher understanding of the difference between an animal and a human being. In other words, and just to further illustrate this point that Ananda Basha was asking about sex life. Yes, sex desire is there in the human being, unfortunately, in a sense. We're nagged by the sex desire, but by carefully studying the Shastra, this is the essence of understanding. In other words, if you don't understand what is the situation that you're in, how can you get out of it? It's a problem. Yeah, we have this urge. For example, by the mode of passion, you have this urge for reproduction. But when you realize that the human being is not the animal, just like you see the dog, they can't control themselves. The pigeon can't control himself. Prabhupada says that if you want to have sex, you can be born as a pigeon. You can have sex all day. Like the monkey. The monkey keeps all kinds of female monkeys. The male does, because he's a monkey. We're in the species of life known as the human species, Prabhu, Bala Ganesh. And the purpose of this human form of life is to rise above the animal instincts and become a transcendental person, purified by the process of devotional service, hearing, chanting. What is the most important thing in your daily activity? To remember. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. These are processes. So when you become attacked by the mode of passion, you remember the philosophy. You have to draw it into your intelligence. You have to use your brains, brother, to understand that the purpose of life is to go back to Godhead, not act as a human animal, a sophisticated cat and dog. So here is the point further to Bala Ganesh. Remember this.
Yes, Prabhu.
It doesn't matter what ashram it is that you're in. What it matters is how you control yourself each and every day when you're engaging yourself in devotional service. It's a matter of personal determination and effort. And if you can do that, whether you're a new devotee, just 18 or 19 or 20, or whether you're a devotee 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years old, the rule is the same for everyone. It's not based on seniority, but it's based on discipline. How disciplined you are to understand how to control yourself through the association of Prabhupada and the association of his devotees. Yaśodā-nandana, please.
There is a letter which Srila Prabhupada wrote in the mid-70s where a devotee asked about big devotees. And Prabhupada's reply was, there is no such thing as a big or small devotee in our movement. All devotees are servants of Krishna. So the point is, if one understands the philosophy and actually engages in Krishna's service, that problem will be gradually solved. And this is the point about higher taste. If one gets a taste for chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavad-gītā, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a wealth of information. There's a wealth of engagement. If one does that, gradually, that problem will be solved. I hope that it helps to answer your question. Anybody else has questions?
Bala Ganesh still has his hand up. Prabhu, please bring forth your question.
Yes, Prabhu, but one point I'm not able to understand is then why person in the renounced order of life is considered to be the head of all other varnas?
I cannot hear his audio. I cannot hear anything.
I'll just read. He has also written this here,
Yes, Prabhu.
that in Bhagavad-gītā chapter 16, verse 1 to 3, Srila Prabhupada writes that in the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi or the person in the renounced order of life is considered to be the head or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. So what Bala Ganesh Prabhu is asking is, in this chapter, chapter 7, Krishna says that he's the best of everything. Like, I am the sun, I don't actually remember, but
Heat in fire, fragrance of earth. Yeah, many examples he gives, quoting that he's the best of everything.
so why does Krishna compare himself to Grihastha ashram instead of sannyasi ashram, which is supposed to be the best of the Varnashram institution? That's the question.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Why don't you go ahead, Vishwakarma Prabhu?
Okay, thank you again, Prabhu, for your question. It's true that if a person does become sufficiently advanced in spiritual life, he may take the role of the sannyasi. In fact, in the Varnashram system, it's a progressive movement from brahmachari, as you know, to grihastha, to varnaprastha, to sannyas. There is a natural sequence that you flow through in the human form of life to get to this renounced stage of primary focus on Krishna as the Supreme Lord and you as his servant. And that sets example for other people. But I go back to the same point to you. I gave the answer. To properly understand this, you have to realize what your position is. Are you a brahmachari by chance, Bala Ganesh?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so the purpose, how long do you think you're going to be living? Let me ask you, do you think you'll live another week?
Don't know, Prabhu. That is there in Krishna's hands. Really don't know.
Okay, fair enough. How old are you, by the way?
30, Prabhu.
Excellent. So you've lived for 30 years. You're not sure when you're going to die, but you know you're here today. So the main thing is this, brother, is to focus on your daily activity as the main business and not worry about so much about the ashram. You're in the brahmachari ashram. That is also a very high position. But again, every ashram is a high position. Bhaktivedanta Thakur was a grihasta, correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
And he's one of the greatest acharyas in the history of Vaishnava teachings, grihasta ashram. So it's not so much what ashram you're in, it's how you perform your devotional service every day. That's what I'm directing you to do. Become a first-class brahmachari. Be a first-class grihasta if you're in the grihasta ashram. Become a first-class sannyasi. Not like in the situation where someone becomes a sannyasi and then they become a child molester. Is that a good thing?
No, Prabhu.
That's going on. Prabhupada actually said, and Yaśodā can do the reference for that for us, of when Prabhupada said, no more sannyas. Why? Because the person is taking sannyas and then breaking all the rules and destroying the respect of the sannyas order of life in the eyes of all the grihastas, in the eyes of the brahmachari. It's not about what ashram, it's how you, Prabhu, and how I and how all of us perform our devotional service every day, thinking that this could be the last day of my life. Huh? Just like Maharaj Parikshit. 7 days to live. What did he do? Hear, chant, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he successfully left this world and went back home, back to Godhead. Yaśodā-nandana, please.
Yeah, that reference is from a lecture by Srila Prabhupada in Bombay, India on January 7th, 1977. So that settles that issue. There's an interesting point here raised by Prabhu, by Bal Ganesh Prabhu, is that in our movement, they've done a lot of unauthorized things. In other words, they've introduced policies and different things that Prabhupada did not introduce, especially after 1977. For example, this proliferation, this political sannyas, where people were giving that order because of a demand for being some loyal assistants, some loyal lieutenants in somebody trying to build their own little empire. We've seen this especially in America and Europe after 1977 for a few years. But Prabhupada did not approve of that. Just like Prabhupada at one point sent numerous letters how Brahmin initiation should not be given so freely. People should pass examinations. People should wait at least for a year. People should be fixed up. But it became like, well, we need somebody in the kitchen or somebody to do puja. Let's give him Brahmin initiation. 2 years later, the person is, God knows what they were doing. So there's a certain level of of what are called maverick mentality that took place, especially after 1977, when people concocted all kinds of interpretations that were not the direct order of Srila Prabhupada. It's like yesterday, one devotee got a question from another devotee saying, well, why can't people accept Lord Brahma as their initiating guru, as their Diksha guru? But Prabhupada never suggested that. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada set up a system by which new disciples would be initiated as his disciples by the via media of officiating representative or ritics. That is his last order with regards to initiation. Now, some very brilliant individuals in their collective wisdom taught that we know better than Prabhupada, will appoint ourselves as acharyas. They did. And the result was not very good. Look at the Gurukul system, the lack of varnashram. There's so many problems that have resulted on account of that disobedience of Srila Prabhupada's primary instruction. So this issue of Prabhupada not recommending, you're asking the point, you're not able to understand while the sannyasi is the head. Well, that's in the book. Prabhupada can also give direct instruction. Srila Prabhupada many times gave direct instruction. For example, on April 15th, 1975, Prabhupada had a conversation with a devotee, Achyutananda. Now listen carefully to this explanation of Prabhupada. Achyutananda, Sri Krishna says in the end of Bhagavad-gītā, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, Bhagavad-gītā 1866. But in another place in the Bhagavad-gītā, twice it is mentioned, Sriyan Swadharma Paradharmo Bhayavaha, Bhagavad-gītā 335. One should perform his own duty rather than another's duty. Prabhupada, yes. Achyutananda, how can we? Prabhupada, I may say many things to you, but when I say something directly, do it. Your first duty is to do that. You cannot argue, sir, you said to me like this before. Not that it is not your duty, what I say now. This is from a conversation on April 15th, 1975. Prabhupada keeps going. But if one thinks foolishly that Krishna said something contradictory, no, that is not to be. You could not understand. So even though you could not understand, you take my direct orders now. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. That is your business. The master says like that, and the servant's business is to accept it as it is without any argument. So Prabhupada may have said many things in his books. Yes, that is true. Prabhupada made these statements, but we have to look at the proper context. We have to look also at the proper sequence when these statements were made. It's like Prabhupada says, I may say many things to you, but when I say something directly, do it. Your first duty is to do that. So I hope that this settles this issue. In another conversation on March 27th, 1975 in Mayapur, Prabhupada says, direct instruction important. Just like Krishna in the books, he has given many instructions. But when he says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, one says that you gave me instruction before like this. How can I give this up? So that is not important. The direct instruction is important. So Srila Prabhupada says a lot of things about sannyas, this and that, but we have to look at the sequence of the statement and what Prabhupada says in the context. I hope it helps. Vishwakarma.
Let's just carry on with this brief discussion with Bala Ganesh. Bala Ganesh, you're saying you don't understand. What is it that you don't understand?
No, Prabhu. Actually, I understand whatever Prabhu you were saying, but yeah, why he is considered as head? I can understand all are equally important and respectful status and orders of Varnashram institution, but why in general they are considered as head?
I just explained it to you.
Yeah. I mean, our own personal elevation, our own personal application is important. But when it comes to the institution as such, so why they were given leadership is what my question, bro.
Who's given leadership?
Our Sanatana Dharma means Prabhupada told
Sannyasis. Why
yeah,
sannyasis are
Varnashrams.
considered the head?
Yeah, in Varnashrama institutions.
Well, I don't know what, we just explained it to you. You're not listening. Why don't you understand? Explain to us why you don't understand. If we explain it to you and then you say, I still don't understand,
So Prabhu,
what's the reason why you don't understand?
I understood, Prabhu. But eventually, if someone is staying in Grihasthasrama, practicing his rules and regulations, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, eventually he took up the Babaji Vesh. He did not remain in the Grihasthashram. So similarly, there are many elevated Vaishnavas who eventually left the Grihasthashrama for the sake of preaching, for the sake of further service to his Guru Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada. So is that elevation also is equal to Grihasthasrama, Prabhu?
Okay. I'm not going to repeat the answer again to you. We've already explained to you that it is a matter of how you apply yourself to this process. We went over the steps. Please meditate on the answer and try to accept it. If you can't accept it, you'll have to carry on chanting, carry on study, carry on being a devotee, and eventually Krishna from within your heart will reveal to you what we're saying, which is that Krishna consciousness is based on the personal performance of each individual person. So it doesn't matter if a person is a sannyasi, a grihasta, a brahmachari, a man, a woman. None of these things matter. The matter is how you perform your devotional service every day. That's as simple as it is. Now, if you're concerned about ashram, that's another point that you can look at and try to understand and speculate on. But first, just try to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the spiritual master. Who is your guru, by the way?
Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. So become the servant of the servant of the servant of Srila Prabhupada. In this way, everything will be revealed to you.
Thanks a lot, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
I think Gauramani Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yes.
Come va?
Hare, my respectful obeisances to everyone. Molto bene, grazie, Prabhu. No, I remember that I read Prabhupada saying about this point that the Grihasta that live properly, the Grihasta ashram, having sex only for procreation, is better than a sannyasi because he is living with a woman and maybe a wonderful wife, but he can control his senses and in a case use just to procreate and in a mood of service to the Lord. Maybe this help Prabhu to understand why Sri Krishna says that he is even in the Grihasta ashram as the sex life regulated. That's
a
Excellent.
very good point. That's a very good point. I'd like to quote from a letter that Prabhupada wrote. This is a letter that Prabhupada wrote on 19th of September, 1974 to a devotee named Gopi Jana Vallabha Dasa. In this letter, Srila Prabhupada says, upon your recommendation, I'm initiating the following disciples. You must see that they strictly follow the regulated principles, the 4 prohibitions, as well as the devotional practices of arising early, taking morning bath, putting on tilak, attending Mangalarti, chanting Japa 16 rounds, and attending Srimad Bhagavatam class. This is the duty of all my initiated disciples, whether they are big or they are small. And here's the operative clause here. Actually, in our movement, there is no such thing as big or small. Everyone is a devotee. Let me just repeat that. Actually, in our movement, there is no such thing as big or small. Everyone is a devotee. So everyone is expected to follow the devotional practices. Prabhupada continues, here in Vrindavan, I'm enjoying my disciples how they are speaking. So 2 times daily, everyone must attend the classes. During the morning and evening times, there should be no business. Simply kirtan, chant, dance, and be purified. Do not be Paramamsa now. I haven't got to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gītā. Don't be a better Paramamsa than your Guru Maharaj. I go and sit and enjoy the lectures and how they are performing kirtan. So as I'm doing, you must also do. So this is a very important point. Now, these ideas that many devotees have, that's the sannyas in ISKCON, for example, is a very special position. Well, on one hand it is. On the other hand, when we read a letter like this, it gives us a better perspective what Prabhupada did, that everyone is a devotee. You know, one time somebody asked Prabhupada, what about the big devotees in this movement? And Prabhupada's reply, I am the only big devotee in this movement. That is the first point people should recognize. That is, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada is the only Mahabhagavat in this movement. He's the only perfect Uttamadhikari in this movement. He is the factual big devotee in this movement. He came from Goloka Vrindavan, from the spiritual world, sent by Lord Chaitanya to bring this movement. And no amount of nonsense or self-motivation or crazy people, crazy deviated people will ever stop this movement. It will go. The movement is undergoing a major internal cleansing right now. They're having all kinds of schisms, all kinds of disputes, all kinds of breakups, because they do not read Prabhupada's books. They do not follow his instructions. They are so foolish that they put in a government office in America, in Washington, D.C., that Prabhupada was an employee of their corporation. Just see the madness. Just see the foolishness. That's why people should reject these nonsense people and focus on his divine grace and his perfect and pure teachings, not the adulterated, change-edited books. That is useless. The original, non-adulterated books. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mr. Karma. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very, very nicely spoken. And I do appreciate, we're moving closer to the end of the class. I do appreciate Bala Ganesh's questions very much. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your attending the class and listening to the discussions amongst the God brothers of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. Just before we finish, it is again a point that about the sannyas order. Because you brought this up, that it is supposed to be, and quite righteously, quite correctly, I should say, should be considered a goal for everyone to be controller of the senses. That's what the meaning of Goswami or Swami is, that you control your senses, that you're in a position of understanding that you're not the body, that the body is simply a bile, stool, pus, urine capsule of ignorance for the living entity. It's Prabhupada described it as a bad bargain for the spirit soul, a bad bargain. Now, in the particular case of sannyas, in the ISKCON movement, there have been 150 gurus elected. First of all, there's no history of election of a guru. No history in our sampradayas. None of them. Secondly, in this particular situation that we're in right now, out of 150 gurus, 75 have fallen down. Most of them sannyasi. What does that mean? It's a farce. There's no such thing as 75 gurus falling down that are Mahabhagavats on the Uttama-Adhikari platform. That does not happen. If it does happen, like in the case of the ISKCON movement, that is proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that this elected guru system is not real. It is a farce. And these people are proving it. So don't be enamored by the pink robes, the impersonation of people pretending to be like Lord Chaitanya, dancing in a sahaja way. This is going on in this society that we were members of. And it's self-evident to all of us that this is not something we're going to follow. Yaśodā-nandana, do you have a final comment for us?
Why we're assembling here? We are assembling and we are hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, different discussions. The whole idea is to increase our attraction to Krishna. And whatever procedure or practices are hindering that should be rejected. Just like we keep giving the example, and we've discussed many times, that Prabhupada gave very specific mantras to be chanted for Kirtan in our practices. And nobody can invent new mantras and introduce new mantras. But this is being done by many people. So one has to follow the Acharya. Acharya upasanam saucham. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is also described, Acharyavan Purusho Veda, that one who follows the Acharya is to be understood, he will understand everything correctly. Yes, Venkat Prabhu, you had a question? You made a comment on the screen that you had a question?
Yes, I was just wondering, just going back to the topic of sex life according to religious principles. I was wondering if you could comment on, I've read that Prabhupada said we should chant 50 rounds before we, engage in sex life. And so just for the benefit of anyone who's watching who maybe doesn't know that, maybe you could comment on that.
Yes, that was the instruction of Srila Prabhupada, that husband and wife should chant 50 rounds before they engage in procreation. That was Prabhupada's modern practice of Garbhadan Samskara. In the Vedas, there is a special samskara, a ritualistic ceremony, before a husband and wife engage for procreating a child. They're supposed to follow a certain practice, chant certain mantras, and do certain things. But Prabhupada, basically, his point was chant 50 rounds, purify your mind, and pray to Krishna to send a nice child. And this was his Divine Grace's practice. The problem is something that Vishwakarma Prabhu raised earlier. We are not monkeys, we are not pigeons, we are not dogs. If you look at the history of all these different religions, whether it's the Bible with the Christian, the Quran with the Muslims, or the Torah with the Jews, or the Buddhist scripture, there is no religion that encourages living like animals. They all have prescriptions for marriages. They all have certain restrictions to live in a proper way for a procreation of children. This modern woke mentality of whatever they call it, of sex with man to man or women to women, that is not the natural way of living. This is monkey life. It's animal life. Human beings are meant to control the sense gratification and purify their lives so a nice child will be born. That is the point. And if somebody is able to do that, then they should engage. Like there is a famous quote that Prabhupada says that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur one time said that if I could produce nice Krishna conscious children, I would have sex 100 times. I'm paraphrasing here, and produce nice children. In other words, basically, he's giving the perfect example of the Krishna conscious, the Vedic conscious mindset to produce children. Hare Krishna. Yes, Vishwakarma.
Haribo. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. And we want to thank all of the people who participated today in the class, in the discussion. And we want to remind you that this is part of our broadcast of Prabhupada programming for Prabhupada TV. So if you want to go back to the class for reference in the future, you can do it by going to Prabhupada TV YouTube channel. It was also streamed today live on Facebook, and it is part of our overall plan to present Prabhupada as he wanted it to be presented according to his directions, as it is, without any adulteration. There'll be a class coming up tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., Srimad Bhagavatam class. In our weekly schedule, we're moving forward. We're reading the Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The original 1962 Bhagavatam is being read on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada and in America. And then on Wednesday night, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we've been having our god brother Garuda join us. He sent me a note. He said yesterday, I especially enjoy attending the discussions with all of you on Wednesday evening on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So thank you, everyone, for your participation. We really appreciate it. This is part of the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya, to hear and chant and remember Krishna and Prabhupada in the association of like-minded people. There's a difference between the crows and the swans. The swans associate because they want to understand the pure message of Srila Prabhupada, not with the crows that are trying to change that message and change the mission of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. Vinkat, please play the Kirtan for us. Let's enjoy it. And back home, back to Godhead, everyone. Haribol.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare
Rama. Let us offer our humble obeisances to the assembled devotees. Vanchakalpa, Tarubhyascha, Kripasindu Devacha, Patitanam Pavenibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
Jai
Haribol.
Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.
Krishna
Dr.
Karma.
Dada.
Krishna
Yes.
Karma. Work now and